Malik Nabers scores ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr. in our wide receiver prospect model at yardsperfantasy.com. It's close, and they both come out as elite wide receiver prospects, but there are some things in Nabers' profile that it likes just a little bit better. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I rank them that way. The model is just one of many factors that I consider when deriving my rookie rankings, but I guess you'll just have to wait and find out at the end of the video. And if you want to see beyond my top 15 wide receiver rookie rankings, or you want my quarterback, running back, tight end rankings, or my overall rankings, we just dropped a free rookie guide at yardsperfantasy.com. So check that out. I'll drop the link in the description. But this intro has already gone way longer than I'd like. So let's just get into my rookie wide receiver rankings. Beginning at wide receiver 15, Western Kentucky's Malachi Corley. Malachi Corley's game is built on yards after the catch. At 5'11", 215 pounds, he has the frame of a running back. And that's exactly his mentality when he has the ball in his hands. He wants to run around you, and he wants to run through you. He's always looking for ways to squeeze out every last yard he can get. And that size and his strength, paired with speed, makes him very difficult for the average defensive back to take down on first contact. And the Hilltoppers took full advantage of his skill set, manufacturing touches for Corley in the form of screens, jet sweeps, shallow crosses, etc. However, outside of those types of routes, Malachi Corley wasn't asked to do much else. His route tree only had a few branches, and he wasn't exactly the most savvy route runner either. And it wasn't often that he was asked to run more than about 10 yards or so down the field. And that raises concerns for his potential role in an NFL offense without further development in areas like footwork, release, and technique. It's always a little worrisome when a guy's best traits coming out of college is about picking up yards after the catch. So often we see that doesn't translate to the NFL nearly as much as people hope. We have to remember that these guys are often playing against defenders who may not even sniff the NFL level. And that's especially true when you're talking about a smaller school like Western Kentucky. Malachi Corley, who calls himself the Yak King, may be in for a rude awakening when he faces NFL size, speed, and skill. Like I said before, scouts want him to be the next Deebo Samuel so badly. And that's the style that he plays, but Deebo is such a rare breed that it's hard to make that bet. Still, Malachi Corley will have a chance to carve out a role early in his career as an underneath slot guy with good hands and playmaking ability. That may not bring enough volume for fantasy football purposes if Malachi Corley doesn't develop into a more well-rounded wide receiver though. I'm expecting him to come off the board probably in the 3rd or the 4th round of the NFL draft. In a dynasty, he will be a solid 3rd round selection in our rookie drafts. Coming in at my wide receiver 14 is Javon Baker. Central Florida's Javon Baker is an above-average route runner who particularly thrives in the deep and intermediate quadrants of the field. He doesn't exactly have burner speed, and he takes a minute to get going, but that doesn't stop him from making plays vertically. And his ball skills and ball tracking ability are exceptional. When the ball is in the air, Javon Baker uses his natural instincts to find the football, to attack it at its highest point. And after the catch, Javon Baker's lateral agility and explosion kick in to help him gain additional yards. At the NFL level, Javon Baker projects as a team's wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4 who's going to line up at both X and Z. Now, draft capital probably won't come until day 3, but that's not going to stop him from being one of the most intriguing wide receivers in the 3rd or 4th rounds of Dynasty rookie drafts. My NFL comp for him is Josh Doxson, and his yards performance score comes out to 52.2, which is in the 79th percentile. Moving on to wide receiver 13 is Washington's Ja'Lynn Polk. Ja'Lynn Polk played second fiddle to Odunze and even Jalen McMillan at times over the last couple of seasons. But that doesn't mean he should be overlooked during the NFL draft process. Ja'Lynn Polk is a talented wide receiver in his own right. He has good size, athleticism, and possibly the best hands of any wide receiver in the 2024 class. He may not be the fastest, but he has good enough speed to win downfield and to create plays after the catch. Ja'Lynn Polk is also a quality route runner who consistently wins against man coverage, and he has little trouble creating separation. He can sometimes get held up at the line of scrimmage, but that is something he can work on at the NFL level. Where Polk is most dominant is in contested catch situations. He tracks the ball well down the field, and he uses his size, strength, and wide catch radius to beat defenders to the catch point. But Polk is far from a one-trick pony. He's a threat on all 3 levels, and he can move around the formation, taking snaps from both out wide and in the slot. He is a very well-rounded wide receiver who quarterbacks are going to look to in clutch situations thanks to his reliable hands. Ja'Lynn Polk projects as the team's #2 wide receiver at the NFL level, who will take snaps at Z and from the slot. He's likely going to be one of several wide receivers drafted in the second round of the NFL draft with a real shot to crack the top 50. And in Dynasty, Ja'Lynn Polk feels like a high floor, almost a safe pick in the second or third round of our rookie drafts. The polarizing Xavier Legette from South Carolina is my wide receiver 12. If we only looked at Xavier Legette's 2023 season statistics and his athletic traits, it would be hard not to rank him as one of the top wide receivers in the 2024 NFL draft class. But that is not the reality. It took Xavier Legette until his 5th year in college to put up any sort of meaningful production. At that point, he was 22 years old and leaning on pure, raw athletic traits. Let's give him some credit, though. His athleticism is off the charts. At 6'1", 223 pounds, he should not be able to run as fast as he does. In fact, Xavier Legette reached a top speed of 22.3 miles per hour in 2023. And to put it into perspective, only 3 NFL players reached 22 miles per hour in 2023. But he's not just a speed guy. Xavier Legette does not shy away from contact. He will happily run through you after the catch, an area that he thrives in. He will also use his size and strength to dominate in contested catch situations, both vertically and in the red zone. And when you look at just the final season, Xavier Legette looks great on paper. His 3.05 yards per team pass attempt is elite. He averaged 6 receptions per game, which is among the best in the class. He accounted for 1/3 of his team's receiving touchdowns, and he had a dominator rating over 35%. Where he struggles, though, is in the more technical areas of playing wide receiver. He is not great off the line of scrimmage, and his routes, the few that he does run, are far from refined. He will need to continue to develop the details of route running and expand his route tree if he is to become a more well-rounded wide receiver that commands volume at the NFL level. As it stands now, Xavier Legette projects as a situational vertical and red zone threat early in his career with the hopes that he can develop into more. He may be able to work his way into a big slot role. He took about 1/3 of his snaps in 2023 from the slot as a complementary wide receiver. His physical traits scream outside X, but I'm not sure he's ever gonna get there, given how long it took him to develop at the college level and his struggles to create consistent separation. Still, some NFL team is going to get excited about this guy and draft him in the second round. And that draft capital plus the intriguing traits and final season production will make him a tempting pick in the second round of our Dynasty rookie drafts as well. At wide receiver 11 is Ricky Pearsall from Florida. Florida wide receiver Ricky Pearsall is a crafty route runner with a high football IQ and full field awareness. He is a reliable target for his quarterback with good hands and the ability to win in traffic. He consistently finds the holes in the defense and sits down to create an open target. And while he can line up at different positions across the field, Ricky Pearsall is destined for a slot role at the NFL level. That will allow him to maximize his skill set as a route runner and chain mover while also avoiding physical man coverage. Pearsall will live in the short and intermediate areas of the field. He doesn't really pose much of a threat vertically. He's likely going to come off the board in the 3rd round of the NFL draft. And in Dynasty, Ricky Pearsall will be a play in round 3 of our rookie drafts with a chance to become a top 36 fantasy producer if he becomes a steady starting slot. And hey, if you're enjoying this video, you find it all valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We got you covered all the way through and past the NFL draft. Breaking into the top 10 is Keon Coleman. He's a polarizing prospect. He's from Florida State. Keon Coleman is a physically gifted wide receiver. Standing at 6'4", 215 pounds, he has the body of a prototypical X wide receiver in the NFL. He has good hands with incredible ball skills and impressive lateral movement for a guy of his size. He thrives in contested catch situations, and he presents his quarterback with a target that can win those 50-50 balls like he's not even covered. Coleman also puts his size and physicality to good use at the line of scrimmage, easily shaking press coverage more often than not. And while he can run the full route tree and win on all 3 levels, Keon Coleman does have room to grow in the route department. Some wasted movement and unharnessed footwork paired with the lack of true deep speed can sometimes make creating separation difficult for Keon Coleman. But his raw physical tools and already signs of improvement from his sophomore to his junior seasons does provide a little bit of hope that he can continue to develop in this area. The scouts are drooling over Keon Coleman's athleticism, size, and overall physical traits of the wide receiver position. But the production numbers don't seem to match the scouting reports. If all you do is read the film grades and watch the highlight clips, you're going to love Keon Coleman. But the numbers tell a different story. And if you know me, my analysis is very, very numbers focused. Keon Coleman was an underwhelming producer in both of his seasons as a starter, one at Michigan State and one at Florida State. He combined for just barely over 1,500 receiving yards in his 3 college seasons. And to put that into perspective, LSU wide receiver Malik Nabers had 1,569 receiving yards in 2023 alone. And sure, you could place blame on subpar quarterback play and an offense that isn't built around the passing game, etc., etc., etc. And that may explain the lack of raw numbers, but it still doesn't answer to why he only accounted for just 18% of his team receiving yards in 2023, or had just 1.51 yards per team pass attempt, or 1.9 yards per route run for his entire career. This is a problem. And some analysts are obsessing over his incredible contested catch ability. And while I agree he is phenomenal in those situations and his spectacular catches are so much fun to watch, it does beg the question, why is he in so many contested catch situations? Can he not create separation? Because if you're struggling to create separation at the college level, it's certainly not going to get any easier in the NFL. And take this quote from Sam Munson on PFF. He says, "If making contested catches is part of your skill set, that's great. But if it's the best thing that you bring to the table, we might have a problem." And I think we have a problem. That's because according to PFF, 34% of Keon Coleman's targets in 2023 were considered contested. And in comparison to some of the other top prospects in this class, Marvin Harrison Jr. had a 26.3% contested target rate. Odunze, 20.6%, and Malik Nabers, 17.2%. Coleman is certainly a polarizing prospect. The upside is absolutely there. Like I said before, he is great at the catch point, and he gets a lot out of his natural athletic ability. And we do have to remember he is just 20 years old with time to develop his game further. And truthfully, his ceiling is about as high as it gets if he puts it all together. There's no doubting that. But the concerns are very, very fair. Ladd McConkey comes in at my wide receiver 9. Ladd McConkey had an underwhelming college career from a production standpoint. You could say that the Georgia offense was run focused, but that still doesn't explain away the poor team share metrics. But still, when you watch Ladd McConkey, it's hard to not think he has a chance to be a contributor in the NFL. He is one of the more complete route runners in the 2024 class. He uses his combination of speed, acceleration, quickness, and agility to create easy separation. He's a reliable underneath option who can quickly turn upfield and gain chunks of yards after the catch. He also possesses the speed to win vertically. Ladd McConkey is a smart player who quickly identifies coverages and finds the open holes on the defense to create a target for his quarterback. He does tend to struggle in more physical situations though. With an undersized frame, Ladd McConkey has a hard time dealing with press coverage and physical defenders. He's also not going to win a lot of balls in contested situations. At the NFL level, Ladd McConkey projects as a complementary wide receiver who's going to line up in the slot and out at Z. He's going to work himself into space and be a reliable target for his quarterback and eat up yards after the catch. But before we get into more, I just want to remind you that if you want to draft any of these rookies, you can right now. Underdog Fantasy makes it possible. You don't have to wait until your rookie drafts. So go draft one of these guys, or Marvin Harrison Jr., or Brock Bowers, Caleb Williams, any of the guys that you like. Pre-NFL draft rookies present the greatest value in 2024 best ball drafts that are happening right now. And when you sign up for Underdog Fantasy, make sure you use promo code YARDSPER, and they'll double your deposit up to $100. My rookie wide receiver 8 is Roman Wilson. Roman Wilson had a breakout 2023 season that included 12 touchdowns, a national championship, and concluded with an impressive performance at the Senior Bowl. And despite 3 underwhelming seasons prior to 2023, Roman Wilson was able to showcase his exceptional speed, reliable hands, and quality route running during his senior season. And he proved versatile enough to work from both the slot and out wide. He uses his speed to stretch the defense both vertically and horizontally, and uses his high football IQ and awareness to find the holes in the defense to create a consistent target for his quarterback. Wilson is a smooth operator who often eats up defenses on crossing routes, both shallow and deep. And he shined at the NFL Combine, which included a 4.39 40. He's an overall exceptional athlete. However, there are definitely plenty of concerns across his profile, the most glaring of which is the underwhelming production and the late breakout. There are also concerns about how he will hold up against physical play at the NFL level, and he's really not a yards after catch guy. I mean, outside of just pure speed, he's really not that hard to bring down the open field. But in the NFL, Roman Wilson projects as a starting slot receiver who can also bump out wide to Z when needed as well. He will use his speed and separation skills to work himself open on all three levels. Roman Wilson is looking like a day 2 pick on NFL draft weekend, and in Dynasty, he's going to be a target in the second round of our rookie drafts with the hopes that he develops into his athleticism to become a playmaker and a reliable fantasy option. Coming in at wide receiver 7 in my rookie wide receiver rankings is Oregon's Troy Franklin. Troy Franklin is one of the fastest wide receivers in the 2024 NFL draft class. He has no trouble getting open deep or outrunning defenders after the catch. While his game is built around that speed, Troy Franklin is more than just a burner who only runs straight lines down the field. He is a quality route runner with a great feel for defenses and finding ways to get himself open in the short and intermediate areas of the field as well. He uses a variety of effective release tactics to get off the line quickly and into his routes. With a little bit of a slim frame, Troy Franklin does tend to get thrown off by physical defenders in press coverage. He's also not known for winning in traffic in contested catch situations. And while he's good at tracking the ball down the field, Troy Franklin does have a tendency to let the ball come to him rather than meeting it at its highest point. This opens it up to be played by the defender and leaves potential chunk plays on the field. Troy Franklin projects as a high-end wide receiver 2 in the NFL. He will primarily line up as Z with some looks in the slot as well. Teams will be apt to put him in motion to help him avoid contact at the line of scrimmage and to fully take advantage of his speed threat both vertically and horizontally across the defense. While his somewhat slender frame will limit him in some areas, it's less of a concern in today's NFL after seeing guys like Devontae Smith, Tank Dell, and Jordan Addison and others have such immediate success in the NFL. And that will also give NFL teams confidence to call his name as early as the first round. My wide receiver 6 in the 2024 draft class, from Texas, Adonai Mitchell. Adonai Mitchell is a tall, lanky wide receiver with good overall athleticism. He has enough speed to win vertically with the route running chops to win consistently in the short and intermediate areas of the field as well. Adonai Mitchell is a smooth operator with high level awareness, technique, and football IQ. He is especially good at identifying zone coverages and finding open areas to present his quarterback with an open target. He has reliable hands and a wide catch radius and exceptional ball tracking ability. Where Mitchell struggles most is getting off physical press coverage. I mean, he already takes a few steps to get up to speed, so a defender getting hands on him early in the route can really be a problem. He's also inconsistent in traffic and in contested catch situations, despite his 6'4" frame and strong hands. And Adonai Mitchell's not going to scare anybody after the catch either. There are a few concerns analytically as well, as he falls short on a number of thresholds that we look for. Now, some of that can be explained by facing difficult target competition in the names of Xavier Worthy and Ja'Tavion Sanders, but it is worth noting. Overall, Adonai Mitchell projects as a complementary wide receiver at the NFL level. He will be a reliable option for his quarterback who will appreciate his ability to create separation and find the open areas of a defense. He'll be best deployed as a Z receiver with some slot snaps mixed in as well. An offensive play caller that puts Adonai Mitchell in motion and finds a way to get him free releases is something we would appreciate. But his combination of size, athleticism, and technical route running give him the upside to turn into a consistent fantasy producer. And we're going with back-to-back Texas wide receivers here, cracking the top 5, the fastest wide receiver in the history of the NFL Combine, Xavier Worthy. The first thing that comes to mind when talking about Xavier Worthy is speed. The dude is a burner. The exciting thing is, though, he can control that speed and run quality routes in the short and intermediate areas of the field, as well as being a vertical demon. And Worthy has the versatility to line up in different positions across the formation, which is going to allow NFL play callers to fully maximize his role and to find matchup advantages. The glaring concern in Worthy's profile, though, is his size. And unsurprisingly, that does show up in his game with struggles versus press coverage and physical defenders. He also struggles in contested situations, and he's not exactly a tackle-breaking machine after the catch. Worthy projects as a complementary playmaker at the NFL level. He's not a guy who's going to command a high volume of targets, but he's going to operate as a team's primary vertical threat while also offering value in the screen game and on some intermediate routes as well. And we know that game-breaking speed is going to keep defensive coordinators and safeties on their toes at all times. My wide receiver 4 is Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU. Brian Thomas Jr. was a late breakout at LSU, but when he hit in 2023, he hit in a big way. Thomas wins with speed, explosion, and elite acceleration. He uses his size and his ball tracking ability to pose a major threat both down the field and in the red zone. Thomas is at his best when he's running vertical patterns and short crossers, but he has also been known to win on a few simple in-breaking routes like slants and digs. Where he needs to develop his route tree is in the more technical routes that require a little bit more nuance and body control. He's also going to need to improve his ability to get off press coverage and to win in traffic. Now, Thomas's leap from his pedestrian freshman and sophomore seasons to a monster junior campaign does give me some confidence that he can continue to develop in those areas that he needs to get better at. He has all the physical tools you would want in a playmaking wide receiver. He's going to make an immediate impact in the NFL as a downfield threat with the upside to develop into a true number one. An offense that heavily utilizes the vertical game with a quarterback who's not afraid to chuck it down the field, that's going to be the perfect fit for a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. Here we go. We've made it to the big three. It's Rome Odunze at wide receiver 3, and he's from Washington. Rome Odunze is one of the top wide receiver prospects in the 2024 draft class. He checks just about every box from size, play strength, athleticism to route running, and football IQ. Odunze is a smooth operator who uses his full arsenal of tools to win in a variety of different ways. He's especially dominant in contested catch situations where he can use his size, his strength, and his ball tracking ability to win against the most physical defenders. He could use some work off the line of scrimmage against press coverage, but overall his route running is about as good as anyone in college football. And then once he has the ball in his hands, he is difficult to bring down on first contact. Like I said earlier, Rome Odunze projects as a prototypical alpha wide receiver 1 at the NFL level. He'll be a team's X receiver while also possessing the versatility to move around the formation and contribute in a number of different ways. Odunze will likely be the 3rd wide receiver off the board on draft weekend, and he's likely to hear his name among the top 15. Lock him in as a top 5, top 6 pick in Dynasty rookie drafts with about as high a ceiling as it gets. While the model is telling me that Malik Nabers is the best wide receiver in the class, I do have him ranked as my wide receiver 2. He can pretty much do it all. He has decent size at 6 feet, 200 pounds. He can run effective routes from the X, Z, and slot positions. And his speed allows him to create separation down the field on posts, goes, and slot fades, but he can also dial it back to win in the short and intermediate areas of the field as well. Then, once he has the ball in his hands, he pairs that speed with elite quickness, acceleration, explosion, and strength to make it very difficult for defenders to track him down. He almost always gains yards after the catch. Nabers is good at just about every part of playing wide receiver. The only areas that could use a little bit of work are his release packages off the line of scrimmage, particularly against press coverage, and becoming more consistent in traffic and in contested catch situations. There are a few route concepts that we haven't seen much from him, but there's really no reason to believe that he won't be able to develop his route tree further at the NFL level. Otherwise, he's a complete prospect. He checks the size boxes, he checks the analytical boxes, and he gets the full approval from the film scouts as well. While he played a ton from the slot at LSU, and he would certainly get his fair share of snaps there in the NFL as well, Malik Nabers actually projects as a starting Z receiver at the next level. But again, he has the versatility and the skill set to play from any alignment in the NFL, and the teams drafting him are going to love that. They will also appreciate his ability to make explosive plays from anywhere on the field, something that is coveted in today's game. In many other draft classes, we would have Malik Nabers locked in as the wide receiver 1. Instead, he's looking like the second wide receiver off the board behind Marvin Harrison Jr. But it won't be any surprise to see both of these guys go in the top 10 though. Top 5 wouldn't be that shocking either. In Dynasty, Malik Nabers is the locked-in top 3 selection in 1 quarterback rookie drafts, and he's going to be a guy that you can rely on for consistent production for many years to come. And the number 1 wide receiver in the 2024 draft class is no other than Marvin Harrison Jr. from Ohio State. Marvin Harrison Jr. is about as close to a can't-miss prospect as it gets. He's an exceptional route runner who commands targets, and he has the versatility to line up in multiple positions across the formation. His top-end speed and his impressive acceleration make him a dangerous threat on vertical patterns, but what makes him special, though, is pairing that athleticism with incredible ball skills, body control, agility, and natural instincts to make an all-around dominant playmaker who wins in all quadrants of the field. Marvin Harrison Jr. uses his 6'4" frame to its full advantage, tracking the football, adjusting to the football, and attacking the football at its highest point, making him almost impossible to defend in contested catch and jump ball situations. There are only a few very minor things to point out on Marvin Harrison Jr.'s profile as areas for improvement. While he is fast off the line of scrimmage, he could still improve and expand on his release packages and techniques. And he's also inconsistent versus press coverage. Some of that is due to his thin frame for his height. Some is just lack of experience against tight coverage. And lastly, outside of speed and a little bit of wiggle, Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't really present much of a threat after the catch. I mean, he'll burn you if you give him some space to work with, but once you get hands on him, he's pretty easy to take down. But other than that, Marvin Harrison Jr. checks all of the boxes, both from on tape and from an analytical perspective. He is everything NFL teams want in their top wide receiver. He's going to be deployed as the team's alpha, lining up at X, but also getting work from the Z and the slot positions as well, which will make him a matchup nightmare and a headache for defenses to keep track of. He's going to command a high volume of targets from day one, and whoever drafts him is going to be expected to deploy him as their wide receiver 1 from the second he steps on an NFL field. He is that good. Marvin Harrison Jr. will be a top 5 pick in the 2024 NFL draft, and it's very possible we see him inside the top 3. In Dynasty, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the locked-in 1.01 in single quarterback leagues, and he's a top 3 pick in Superflex.